large muscle group. You can do it to the gastroc, just 2 words of caution. The gastroc ends about a third of the half of the way down your leg, and then it's tendon. So it has to be on the top part, and it can kind of give you a Charlie horse kind of feeling. So, I mean, it can work on that, but it's not probably the most comfortable muscle because it does feel like a cramp. So I would recommend mainly quads and hamstrings. Now, you can do both as a co-contraction or as a reciprocating kind of thing. I'm not going to go over that on every machine, but I would encourage you at some point on one of the machines, at least today, to do both, because that might be fair game. And it's a little bit different about how do I get this one to go and then get this one to go kind of thing, and playing with that. Otherwise, try just hamstrings, just quads. If I'm doing just quads, I'm probably going to set him up something like this. He could be totally supine, he could be long sitting. I can get to the quad muscle with it up. His knee is at mid-range. I can get hamstrings here, so if I were doing quads and hamstrings, still might work. If I were just doing hamstrings, I would probably put him prone and a bolster or something under his lower leg. So again, the joint's at mid-range. I can get to the hamstrings to feel and see the contraction a little bit better. For the quads, you're going to do bipolar setups on whatever muscle group you're using. I would recommend you use either the ones that come with the machine that are bigger, or if you can, use the large reusable ones. If you've got a really smaller leg, you might go a little smaller, but usually this is a little more comfortable if you use the bigger ones. For the quads, you need one a little bit more medial than the other, kind of like you did for the NMS unit. One a little more lateral as you go through, but parallel to the fibers. For the hamstrings, you pretty much put them right in the center. Don't go so far down that you're just on tendons down here at the popliteal space, but on the distal part of the hamstrings and up on the proximal hamstrings to get all 3 of those hamstrings going. Okay? So we'll do his quads today. These are brand new, so
I needed a wax.
I like to put them this way instead of this way. You could use a slightly smaller pads and do 4 channels, 4 pads, 2 channels on the same muscle group if you wanted to, especially if you felt like there was a big difference between the medial quads and the lateral, or medial and lateral hamstrings, to make sure you get all of them. When you take this off, hold the skin down, go in the direction of the hair growth will be the less painful.
We're just going to leave those on until I take a shower.
If they aren't the sticky ones, then you'll need to strap them on or whatever. All right? This is AC, so it doesn't matter the red and black. We just have to make sure that we've got the channel. For this one, if you're just doing one channel, you need to, well, you can do either channel 1 or channel 2. You're gonna choose when you turn up the intensity. But just make sure, remember the 1s and 2s on here, that you get the right channel. If you're not using second channel, just leave it off to the side. If you don't have any intensity going there, you're not going to shock anything or whatever there. Oh, I just think I stink. Look over and he's going, I'm sorry. I had Mexican food, but I promise I have it. Okay, so we turn this baby on. Let it warm up.
Yeah, not
Okay, we're going to choose Russian because that's the medium frequency. Same thing, a menu of options comes up here when we choose that. It first says channel 1, so that's what it's going to default to, and that's what's going to read here. So if we don't have channel 1 plugged in, if we choose, it says mode single, that means 1 channel. If we look at the options, it lets us do single, which will be 1 channel, reciprocal, which will be 2 channels, but this one, then this one, or co-contraction, which would either be quads and hamstrings going at the same time, or if you've got both channels on the quads or both channels on the hamstrings, both channels are going on and off at the same time, okay? If you choose one of those, then it will say both channels on there instead of channel 1, okay? If you do single, it defaults to 1. Okay, next is cycle time. That's your on-off time. Remember, you want a 4 or 5 to 1, off to on. It defaults 1050, so So you can leave it at that. If they can do a 10-second contraction, it lets you choose, and not all of these are good choices for medium frequency, but it gives you these options. 5-5, 10-10, 10-20, 4-12, 10-30, 10-50, or continuous where it isn't on and off, it's just on all the time. So really the only one of those that gives you the appropriate ratio is 10-50. So I don't know why they give you all the others, but that's the choices they give you. Okay? Frequency is next. That's your rate. It defaults to 50 bursts per second. If you felt like this was a little bit weaker muscle or smaller muscle and 50 would be too aggressive for it, even as aggressive as you want to be, you can change it, and here you would just raise or lower the number. It doesn't give you other values, but if you wanted 40, then you could lower it down to 40 bursts per second or whatever. Otherwise it'll default to 50. The next thing is ramp. Remember, this is an interrupted surge, so when it comes on, it's not going to immediately go to the maximum intensity. It's going to ramp up to the maximum. It defaults to 2 seconds, which is about the right time for a 10-second contraction. 2 seconds, 10, 2 seconds down. If you wanted it higher or lower, you wanted it to get there slower, fine. But that's about the right ratio, 2 seconds for a 10-second contraction. And then don't worry about the duty cycle. That's how it's built in there for that interpulse interval, and it will default at 50%. Just leave it at that, okay? It will default to 15 minutes. You don't know necessarily how long it's going to take. You're wanting to go to the point of muscle fatigue, but not beyond. So just have enough time that you think you can get there, and then when it starts fatiguing, you're not getting that strong tetanic contraction again, then you know you're fatigued and it's time to go down. Again, you may have to tweak it the first time or two as they kind of settle into it. It hasn't fatigued, but it's not getting the same response. So you may need to tweak this first couple of contractions, but then it will continue on. Okay? When we hit start, then it will start activating, and we increase our intensity to get our tetanic contraction. You may want to be where you can see and feel the muscle. Sitting on the wires. Because you don't want to just go by what your patient says, because guaranteed they'll tell you, oh yeah, before, oh yeah. You're there. Okay? So we hit start. Okay. It's on channel 1. So we make sure of that, and that's when we start going up. You have to go pretty quickly though, because it's only on for 10 seconds.
Oh, look
Now
at
it's
it.
going down.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I have to wait 50 seconds before. This is not one. Some of them you can go to continuous and get it set and then click over like you did on the NMS. This one I can't, but it's reading 0 for those of you that can't see. When it starts going up again, then I'm at another cycle.
I don't wait 50 seconds for it to hit again.
Because it's 10 seconds on, 50 seconds off. So I'm sitting here twiddling my thumbs for 50 seconds. So again, you have to kind of enter that into your time.
You can't put it on continuous and get it set?
Not on this one, because it's a total separate thing. If I go continuous and back, it loses it.
What happens if you plug in the wrong things and you start turning it up, and the ones that are hanging loose are the ones that are turning up?
Don't be sitting on them.
Alright.
So he's at 17 milliamps. He's fasciculating a little bit here, so I might go one more bump up, but that's what you're going for. Whether or not it lifts the limb, I'm not really caring. It frequently will, but you're looking for the strong tetanic contraction,
Does it hurt?
This is always more intense.
because that's a more
Yeah.
sensitive muscle. And so sometimes you're limited by that. It can only go to a certain amount by this, and you're not getting as good a
If that starts
contraction.
hurting there.
Bigger patch. We're not doing 3 to 5 contractions here. He's just going on. Now, once I get it set, not before, but once I get it set, especially if he's having issues with it grabbing, sometimes it's a little more tolerable if they work with it. So you tell them, okay, this next time when it comes on, tighten this muscle, lift your leg, do a quad set, however you want to describe it, and then sometimes it feels a little more comfortable. But I don't want that until I get it set. Okay, and they hold, and then when it goes down, you tell them to relax. And And we're just gonna do that until it's just wormy. And will it lower down? Well, let's go, lower it slowly. Okay, so you would just do that until the end or time clicks off, whatever. Stop it while it's off instead of while it's up there. And that's all there is for that. If I had the hamstrings as a second one, then after I get this going, as soon as it clicks off, channel 2's going. So then I move my box down to channel 2. And here I may have to feel because I'm not seeing it. I'm feeling for the grab of a contraction and he's digging his heel into the thing. But again, after 10 seconds, they're both going to be off for 30 seconds, right? This one's on for 10, it goes off. This one's on for the first 10 seconds of that. They're both off, on off 10:50, but 30 seconds before this comes on again, then this one. So it may take me a few cycles to get them set. Just make sure of what's reading here, 1 or 2, and where your box is. Otherwise, you're turning up the wrong one. Oh, no, that's on the top. You know, as you go. Look it up.